listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those great shows. But tonight, or today, I should say, a special afternoon edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast with the guy, Pat Lane, here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, I'm sure we'll talk about the Super Bowl a little bit. Obviously, it still hurts. What an incredible season by the 2025 Patriots. And, we're going to kind of talk about the 2026 season and what we can look forward to there. But just a heck of a year by the 2025 Patriots.
Yeah, no, it's a great season. If anyone told you at the beginning of the year that the Patriots would lose the Super Bowl, like if it was just like if the question was, would you be happy with the season before the season, knowing that they lose the Super Bowl, you would probably get like 85% yes on that. At minimum from the fan base. So it hurts a little bit to get there and then lose. Obviously your hopes increase throughout.
Yeah.
So it hurts. I still have not watched basically any of the mic'd up content from the game. Seen a couple of the clips, and I'm probably not going to ever go more than that. I never watched it from the Eagles Super Bowl. I don't know how much exists from the two Giants ones, but I've never watched those back. Like the NFL Films treatment either.
Yeah. No.
It's a great experience. It's You kind of now we're kind of in this space where it's all right. We were fortunate to be there. We overachieved to get to that point, I think. Now, how do you get back? How do you make sure you're not on that list of quarterbacks that was young and got to one, and everyone said, all right, well, it doesn't matter that you lost. You're set up for the future, and it doesn't happen.
Right.
That, I think, now becomes the big question, and I think the other big question I'm going to have for this offseason. How do you balance being good in 2026 with being good in 2027 and beyond? Because I think given some of the contracts and the cap space and the draft market and everything, I think there's some tension between those two things. I
agree.
We're on to 2026.
I agree. Paper waves with the Go Pats, and looks like Easy grows at 420 with the Go Pats as well. Look, I think that's the big question. That's the question that everyone's got to answer, right? Is what happens after this year, right? We all want to set up for 2026, and we all want, to be back in the playoffs and competing for a championship next year. But more importantly, I think, is what happens after that, right? And, it's funny because you mentioned kind of not going back and watching those things. And, I'll tell you, as horrendously as the Patriots played in the Super Bowl, and it was horrendous, and it was a beat down by the Seahawks, and Nathaniel says, hi, go Seahawks. I won't put that on screen, but thanks for coming, Nathaniel. We appreciate you. Appreciate you being here. They stomped us, right? The Seahawks stomped us. But the first pass of the game, if Sam Darnold's not absolutely perfect on the first pass of the game, it's 7-0 Patriots, right? Like, it was a perfect jump by Marcus Jones, undercut the route perfectly, was in position to make the interception, and Darnold hit him high and outside, and it's the only place that you could put the ball and have it not be a pick six, and that's exactly what he did. If it wasn't a perfect throw, it's 7-0 Patriots, and it's 7-0 Patriots on the very first throw of the game by Sam Darnold against the Patriots, the team that he was quote unquote seeing ghosts against. That game might go a completely different way if it's 7-0 Patriots after his first possession. When you're talking about the Patriots haven't even touched the ball yet, and it's 7-0 Patriots already, like that, that game could have gone a completely different way. And, it didn't. Darnold made the play, right? If Drake May doesn't throw that horrendous interception, in the middle of the field where he's throwing to nobody. I mean, it honestly looked like he was throwing to the safety. If he throws it outside to Kyle Williams and Williams catches it and walks in for a touchdown, which is what would have happened if he had thrown it to the right spot, now it's 19-14. And all of a sudden, that 19-0 game where the Patriots could do nothing, they have back-to-back touchdown drives while stopping the Seahawks in between. Now you feel like, okay, like we're back in this game. It's a game. Now they still might lose, but you look at it and say, my goodness, like this is this is an easy win for the Patriots. Not an easy win, but a very, very different game. And what I meant to say was that it felt like an easy win for the Seahawks, and it flips it on its head where you say, wow, okay, all of a sudden this is a game. And, the Seahawks might go down and make a play and win the game anyways. But, you feel like everything has changed in that moment, and all the momentum is on the Patriots side. And so, those two plays, just those two plays, if those two plays go differently, it's a completely different game. And, if DeMarcus Jones makes that play, I think the Patriots probably win. And if Drake May throws that pass to Kyle Williams, the Marcus Jones play doesn't happen, and Drake May hits that pass to Kyle Williams,
different game.
They don't win, but it's a completely different game.
When I think I go back to Super Bowl 36, and that 0-1 Patriots team is the one that you see the comparisons all year. Is this how Super Bowl 36 goes if the Patriots don't pick six Kurt Warner?
Maybe.
And I think it's worth remembering. I believe all of the Patriots' offensive points in that game prior to the game-winning drive came off of turnovers. You have the pick six, and then was it the Otis Smith pick? I know there's the Otis Smith pick that sets up a score, and there's the Antoine Harris forced fumble. I believe he's the one that forced that one that sets up a score. And we talked about this game. If this Seattle defense was elite, you probably weren't going to have more than one scoring drive on them where you're starting deep in your own territory. It's a game where you need to force turnovers, and you end up with a very weird defensive performance where you can't really be upset at the defense in a vacuum, but you also knew coming into this game that your only real shot to pull the upset and get the win was to force turnovers, and they didn't do it. They came so close.
Right.
But, this isn't horseshoes or hand grenades, it's football. You need to make the plays, and they didn't. And it's not necessarily a slight on the team, but you need some of those improbable things to happen. And they just didn't.
They didn't.
The only other part of this game that drives me crazy is just it's still, for as poorly as they played, it's still a 2-score game for a pretty big section, even a 1-score game for a pretty big chunk of this game.
Yeah.
And the offense's inability to do anything on those first 3 drives of the second half, 3 straight 3-and-outs, where you feel like if you're able to stay on the field and get a touchdown out of any of those, you have a good spot. And it felt like the second half of the Bills game, where it's just the offense can't even get into a rhythm.
Yeah.
Like the sample size of plays is just so incredibly small because you can't execute on any of them that it's almost hard to evaluate beyond, they tried a couple things and none of them worked and you're immediately going back to the bench.
Yeah.
I do think, do we have any lessons in team building for next year that come out of this that we want to talk about here? I had a couple ideas in terms of team needs for next year.
Yeah, well, I think you look at it and say, okay, the offensive line needs help, obviously. Whether it's, and I'm not going to give Will Campbell a pass because he was atrocious in the Super Bowl, but he clearly wasn't healthy. He was a good player when he was healthy. Was he a dominant, great player? No, but I also look at it and say, okay, well, how good was Darnell Wright his rookie year? Not great. Matter of fact, pretty bad, right? He's a fantastic player now. How good was Penny Sewell his first year? Good, but not as dominant as he is right now, right? And so it's like, give these guys some time. The problem is that when you're trying to evaluate a rookie, when you're trying to evaluate a rookie offensive lineman, the vast majority of those guys, the vast majority of those rookie tackles are not in the Super Bowl with all eyes on them, right? And so it's like, he has a bad game. He absolutely had a horrendous game. But it's every single person in the world is watching this game, right? If he has that game against the Chargers and they lose against the Chargers, people are talking about it, but not to the extent they're talking about it now, right? Like, everyone in the world knows who Will Campbell's name is right now because of what happened in the Super Bowl, right? And so, I think it's a combination of he's young and he's got to add some weight and add some muscle and, literally add some weight and hit the weight room a little bit. And also, he was banged up, right? And so it's like, okay, fine. They need a left guard. Jared Wilson's not a left guard. He's a center. So they need a left guard, and they probably are going to need someone to take Morgan Moses' spot. Morgan Moses hadn't played a full season in years, and he plays a full season plus 4 playoff games this year. I'm worried about him breaking down a little bit next year. So I want to have a solid, a developmental right tackle. And then you need Nicky Emanwari. Like, you need a guy like that. And I thought we had a guy like that in Kyle Duggar for a little while. Duggar kind of lost a step and was never as elite as Emanwari is. But you need a guy like that. You need a Kyle Hamilton. You need someone like that can do a bunch of different things for your defense. And like Marcus Jones, I guess, could do that, but he's like 5'8", 180. It's just not the same. Like, it's not the same
Very
thing.
different.
So, you have to be able to find a guy like that. And that might be tough, but the Seahawks did it with Emanwari because they said, well, this guy's a freak athlete. Let's just draft him and see what happens, and they were able to mold him and sculpt him into the player that he is as a rookie, right? So obviously he had some skills. That's what I'd like to see them do on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, I think you need a wide receiver one. You have to get a wide receiver as well. That's my opinion on it. We'll see what happens, but that's how I feel.
On the offensive line, I almost felt like, do you know what the Peter principle is? The idea of just like promoting someone until they fail. Yeah. That's almost what the season felt like for, honestly, a lot of the offense, but the offensive line in particular. We were hoping the line could go from 31st or 32nd in the league to 24th. Like, that was, if they did that, I think we were all going to feel pretty good about it. And they played well for most of the season. And they just got put in like increasingly tougher situations until they ended up in one where they failed, unfortunately, on a spotlight in front of the entire world.
Right.
So like, I think the offense is being viewed through a lens that it appears unfair for Patriots fans because the other fans only got to see this team in this game, basically. And they're like, wait, this guy's the MVP? This offensive line's good? And it's like, no, there's an offensive line that went from an F to probably a C+ overnight, maybe even a B- overnight. Outplayed that in the regular season because of good coaching and level of competition and good quarterback play. But the talent's not there. It reminds me of I think of some of those like Kyle Shanahan teams or Shanahan scheme teams where the line's not good, but they coach them up, which allows them to be just good enough to play in games where they're going to play against elite defenses that can rip it apart and dominate it. Yeah. And that's what happened. Needs to be fixed. And I think this, I think my concern with Campbell is I think he can be a B+ player for you at tackle when you're playing guys who aren't top 10 pass rushers. I think he was already probably a B- guy against that level of play all year, which is awesome to already get that from someone like that. My concerns are there's two here. One, that I think he can do a lot to fix his technique and fix his strength and all of that, and still be someone who might be a C- or a D against the top pass rushers through no fault of his own. Like, it's just hard to be good against those guys. But then what do you do at the tackle spot if your starting left tackle is someone who is good enough every year to get your offensive line into the playoffs, and then bad enough that when you play the good teams in the playoffs, all of a sudden now it's a concern? The other part of this is that Campbell wasn't that good as a run blocker this year. He wasn't that good as a people mover. I think he had moments, not consistent enough there. Yep. So if you were going to talk, like, one of my big reasons right now, personally, for being against a position switch, which I thought that discussion was kind of ridiculous anyway, and I didn't think there was a world in which the Patriots were going to move him regardless. I thought it was pointless to have the discussion. But if we're going to talk about it, if you want him to be a left guard, he needs to be a much better run blocker than the player you see right now, if you want to get the most out of him. So, like, that's an area where he just has to get better. Running to the left was kind of an issue this year, which is also a Jared Wilson thing he needs to move.
Right.
And then on the Nick Emanwari stuff, my takeaway was actually the inverse of what you said.
Okay.
Because I think everyone wants to have the Nick Emanwari. The problem is, and we saw this when the Seahawks had Cam Chancellor and guys like that back there a decade ago, every time there was one of those athletic freaks in the draft, all of a sudden these guys are going top 10, top 15 because every team is trying to imitate that. Problem is that most of those guys stunk.
Right.
So you're just wasting draft capital chasing after something that's not. That, like, all right, like there's one of these guys, the Seahawks got him. I don't think you're going to replicate it. So the question is, how do you beat it? and I think you beat it. Which again, this is also going to be there's only a couple of these guys type of answer. You need, I think, an elite tight end. I think you need someone like Patriots had success with the 6 offensive line stuff this year. I don't think that's sustainable. I think you need to be able to block like you have 6 offensive linemen while still having that 6th guy be a pass threat.
Mm-hmm.
So like the fix for the Nicky Manwari, Devin Witherspoon type thing is to have a Gronk. Now, obviously, there's also only one Gronk. You're probably not finding another one of those guys, but I do think it means you need to invest long-term in the tight end position and just getting better blockers there, better athletes there. Like AJ Barner isn't a dominant tight end, but the fact that he's a good athlete and a good blocker means you only need him to be good as a pass catcher 2 or 3 plays in a game, and he can kill you, like we saw. This is one of the things we talked about in the preview. They don't get targeted a lot. They don't have to make an impact.
Right.
So I think having someone like that who can beat Neiman Worry is probably where I would go, which I think also bleeds into the wide receiver 1 stuff. Like you need someone who's an athletic pass catcher who demands coverage.
Yeah.
And if you can get that at tight end with someone who's a blocker, that I think is how you kind of slice through this type of defense.
Yeah, and I think the big part of it for me is like I look at it and think, look what happened with Stephon Diggs this year, right? Diggs comes in and he just kind of he becomes the wide receiver 1, and then everyone else slots down 1 slot, right? And we saw how much better Kayshon Boutte was as a 2 than he was as a 1. Right, he's not the guy, and I was very disappointed in him in the Super Bowl. But he's not the guy that's gonna win those one-on-one matchups against elite corners. It's just not who he is, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a good player. He's just not a dominant player. He's not an elite player. Diggs is a very good player. He's not that elite number 1 anymore. He isn't. We saw it fall off kind of towards the end of the year, and so if you're able to get that guy and you can slot everyone else down. Now you're talking about Diggs your number 2, and Boutte's your number 3, and Mac Hollins your number 4, and Kyle Williams is your speed guy. And it's those types of things that I look at and say, if we can do that, now that changes things. Now that everyone gets better because Stephon Diggs is a really good number 2. Kayshon Boutte's a really good number 3, right? And that's where you're like, okay, now it becomes a problem. And then you add a guy like, and I'm, I know it's the exact opposite of what you had said, but like a guy like Kyle Pitts or, a guy like David Njoku. I think David Njoku is actually a decent blocker. Or like Andrew.
Better than Pitts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm better than Pitts, but Andrew DeSilva in the comments mentions Daniel Bellinger. Like Bellinger's not a bad guy. Like, in that fits that role. He's a decent blocker and can kind of get out and receive the ball every now and again. So like, is there a rookie like that? Like, I think that you have to invest in your pass catchers and invest in your offensive line. I'd like to see them target another running back at some point, but if you have Gibson coming back and you feel good about those 3, then I guess I'd be okay with that too. But I also don't know what Gibson will look like coming off the ACL and everything. So, that's a question, but I just think, I'm with you in that respect, and I think tight end makes a ton of sense. You have to invest there anyways. Austin Hooper is just not the guy. Like I like Austin.
He's a free agent.
He's a decent player, but like I'm not overextending to bring him back. And like when he ran that corner route, I mean, Jesus Christ, dude! Like that's just like that can't happen. It's a Super Bowl. That can't happen. Like that's a 40-yard gain.
Get there,
Right? That's a 40-yard gain if he just catches the ball. Right? Just get to the spot, and he doesn't, and you just feel like, all right, it's time to upgrade that spot. And again, whether that's in free agency, whether it's in Njoku, whether that's if they want Kyle Pitts, whether it's Kyle Pitts, whether it's Daniel Bellinger, whether it's someone else, it doesn't have to be a big name, just a guy that can get out, make some blocks, and get open. I think would be helpful. So,
well, I want to put this all now in the context of like what the Patriots actually have to make moves this offseason. Here's the thing: it's easy to say they need this, and this. The reality is, for next season, unless you get extremely lucky all at once, you're not fixing all of the holes in one swing.
Correct.
So I think one of the big challenges here is figuring out which spots you upgrade and how you actually allocate the resources. So Patriots have 11 draft picks, if I'm counting this correctly. 3 in the top 100, 31, 63, 95, 2 in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 4 in the 6th, and then the 7th. So not a lot of premium draft capital, but a lot of day 3 picks where you can, that's a spot where you can
take some swings.
You can move around the board, or you can trade those for veterans too. If you want to, there's guys who might be a cap casualty somewhere that you want to bring in. Those draft picks can be used to go get those guys. The Patriots also have a decent amount of cap space right now. 41 million is what over the cap says, with avenues to create some more. And I think this is where you get into some of the interesting decisions to make. Guys that they can just straight up cut and save money. Stephon Diggs, pre-June 1st cut, you could save almost $17 million there. Yep. So the question becomes, can you get someone better than Stephon Diggs with that extra money? Not that you would cut him because of how good of a player he was, but Michael Onwenu would free up $17.5 million. If they were to cut Barmore, they free up $4.3 million. I think that's more so relevant with his legal situation. Also, I'll pull up the trade. If they were to trade Christian Barmore, they can save $6.3 million. If that were to come up.
That's the avenue. That's the avenue.
Yeah. Harold Landry, on the other hand, you don't free up any money if you cut him now. It's all dead, and some of it accelerates into this year. However, you free up a little bit of money if you cut him after June 1st. So Landry, to me, seems like a prime candidate to bring into camp and compete for a job. And if he doesn't win it, you cut him, and you throw enough assets at the position where you can do that. Morgan Moses, you only free up $3 million if you cut him. You mentioned his health stuff. He actually, I believe, had more blocking snaps than any other player in the NFL this year. When you the playoffs and everything, and which he is someone who's been known for not being healthy, and he's older. So like you said, I think Morgan Moses is fine as a Band-Aid again next year. He's excellent in that. You also have to know that he's a Band-Aid. He's not a long-term fix. And we just talked about needing a wide receiver. We just talked about needing an offensive tackle. We've talked about needing pass rushers. All positions that are typically first-round picks.
Right.
You got one of them, and it's at 31 this year. So you can only pick one of these positions to draft in the first round if you're drafting someone, if you're not trading that for a Max Crosby or if Pickens were to get traded or something like that. So that's the big question of, all right, well, if you can only address one of these with that first, now where do you go?
Sure.
Carlton Davis, by the way, I believe doesn't free up any money. So I think that's probably worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I think that's...
And he played well enough in the playoffs.
He played well enough that I feel like you don't really want to move on from him. I think the Barmore thing is interesting, and this is where I think the Max Crosby stuff comes into play, where it's like if you're telling me that I have to trade 31 and something else with Christian Barmore and I can get Max Crosby back, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I'm doing that. Because again, the dig stuff is the dig stuff, and it is what it is, and I don't know, who knows what's true and what isn't true. I'm not sure. The Christian Barmore stuff sounds really bad, and that's not exactly a he said, she said case, like the Diggs case is. And so and it's not the first time it's happened. I didn't love at the end of the Super Bowl when he's yelling to Milton Williams, it's not us, it wasn't us, it wasn't us, it's not us, it wasn't us. Is he saying it wasn't the way they played? It wasn't the team that they played? Or is he saying that, we didn't lose us this game? I don't know. And again,
I will say, I felt like it got taken out of context. Like watching it, I felt that he was saying this isn't us. We're not playing like ourselves. That's how that came off to me.
And that certainly might be the truth. And that certainly might be what it was. It just I don't know. And again, it's just, this isn't the first time it's happened with Barmore. He's had some off-field issues before. I just feel like, and we all know how Kraft feels about all that stuff. And anyways, so who knows? And again, that's not, I'm not saying that, whatever, he's a bad teammate and with that, and the guys seem to like him, and Vrabel obviously likes him and whatever, but if you have that going on, can you get a second round pick for him? Can you get an early second round pick for him? And if you can, I think you do that. I think you do that.
I look at the Barmore and Diggs situations. They're both interesting. There's like the legal side of things, how you evaluate this too, because I think Barmore, there seems to be a lot more evidence that happened. It's
Right.
also the lesser charge of the two. He gets charged with a misdemeanor.
Right.
Diggs gets charged with a felony.
Yep.
But also the team, based on the previous stances the team has held, they would view the Barmore situation more seriously.
Right.
But then from the football perspective, Diggs was struggling later in the season, had not great production in the playoffs, and you free up a lot more cap space with him. So they're both like an interesting blend, taking the emotions out of
course,
for a second of the legal situation and the cap situation and the football X's and O's. And I really wouldn't be shocked if neither is back in New England next year. When you look at the combinations of the two, it's just then you get to the thing here is that, all right, well, if neither of those guys are in New England, it's hard, even with all the assets and all the cap space the Patriots have, it's hard to get guys better than that.
Correct. Yeah.
So you might be worse next year, even if you're making moves to set you up for success long term. I want to look at wide receiver for a second here. There's two wide receivers who are, technically have expiring contracts now who I think could fill that role. One of them is Alec Pierce, who I think is size-wise and profile-wise something that fits very well with Drake May, and he's young and he's ascending, and he might not be a wide receiver 1, like he'd be a 1B or a high-level 2 in a way that fits May's skill set. I don't think he hits free agency. I don't think the Colts let him get there. I doubt it. And the other one is George Pickens, who is an even better player. He's an incredible player who it sounds like is getting tagged, and then the Cowboys are going to figure out what they're going to do with him. And like George Pickens as a player with Drake May, I think is one of the better fits in all of the NFL right now. Like that makes so much sense. The ages match up. There's just the personality concerns in the fact that if you're making that move, you're going to have to use a chunk of this cap space and probably that first round pick. And I'm not opposed to going in that direction, but that also means you're basically committing yourself to not using a premium asset on looking for a long-term tackle. You're not using a premium asset on getting a pass rusher. You're not using a premium asset on a tight end or a corner or just the best player available who might happen to fall to 31.
Right.
And there's risk in that, especially with the personality you're getting. And, I don't hate betting on a personality like that when Mike Vrabel is Mike Vrabel and you think he can get anyone to buy in. Like that's the value add of Mike Vrabel, is that you think he's getting the best out of any player, or you can get guys who wouldn't be culture fits to buy in anyway. But like there's risk there. It's not far from a sure thing. And you also have to, negotiate the deal and negotiate the trade to even make that happen. Like we can say all this on paper. If the Cowboys just don't want to trade him, well, it doesn't matter what your plans are.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing, right? Is that you just don't know. And there's a lot of different ways to go. And look, Vrabel has talked about this, right? Vrabel said right after the season ended, we're always trying to get younger, faster, and younger, better, and cheaper. Mm-hmm. And the guys that are here are fighting against that, right? That's what's happening. That's the reality of the league. And I think, if Vrabel understands that better than most coaches because he played in the league, right? And he understands, kind of how it goes and what's happening and so on and so forth. And I think, his conversation with Bill Cowher was interesting. I thought, if people watched it, where he said to Cowher, he goes, I appreciate you, coach, because you flat out said to me, like, we could probably pay you here. You could probably get the same contract here, but will you get the same opportunity here? Probably not. And so he left and got a better opportunity in New England and became a great player here in New England. And I think that's one of those things. So I was really happy about that. And I think that's one of those interesting things where he gets it. Not every guy gets it. He understands, like, this is what's happening. And he can have those conversations with players. Hey, look, you're just not going to play here. Right. And, but I don't know. It's interesting. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I do think that they have to certainly upgrade some positions for sure. You have to build around Drake May. And the hard thing is that you also have to pay Christian Gonzalez. And next year, you're going to have to pay Drake May. And so you have a lot of cap space right now, but you don't really have a lot of cap space right now. And so,
I think this is the this is if you're gonna make a push this year in some ways, because it'll start like you can front load some stuff now, or you can structure some stuff now in a way that doesn't impact those in the future, which is nice. I will say, if the cap keeps going up the way it's been going up, not really worried about those
Doesn't
Gonzo
matter.
and Drake May contracts hurting you as badly. But yeah, this is the last opportunity you have with both those guys on rookie deals, where you feel like, all right, we can invest a lot of money right now into this team. It's just who's actually available to give that money to that you want to pay.
Right. Well, and this one thing, and so Nims here says, we should have paid Gonzo this year. Can't. So you cannot re-sign a guy until after he's played 3 years in the NFL. So this is the first time that Gonzo is actually eligible to play, to get paid. Just like you couldn't pay Drake May, you have to wait until after next year to pay him. So it's one of those things where it's like, you have a guy that's dominant right away, and you're like, ooh, let's just pay him, right? Like baseball is like, here's a Roman Anthony, here's a 10-year, a 10-year deal or whatever that's going to work out for the Red Sox because it's a 10-year deal, and if he plays as well as we think, then it's a great deal for the Red Sox. And for Roman Anthony, he's like, just a 10-year deal for whatever, $200 million or something, or 150, whatever it is, and I'm getting that paid. That's a guaranteed contract, and I'm getting it, right? And the NFL doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So you have to play 3 years in the league.
And it used to. That's what the Patriots did with Gronk back in the day. That was right before the new CBA. They just paid him early, and that was one of those contracts that worked out so well for both sides because the risk with Gronk was the very legitimate injury concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So he was happy to take the money earlier and be willing to have a little bit less in guaranteed money, knowing that getting guaranteed money long term would be risk mitigation against future injuries he might have.
Exactly.
And for the Patriots, that means that when he plays a full healthy season, you are getting the best tight end in football, who is one of the most dynamic weapons in the entire sport, for a massive discount. So one of the reasons they're able to build that team the way they did.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I throw out a couple free agents that do interest me, by the way?
Yes. Do you want to do that? Quickly. Yeah, let's do that now, and then we'll do an ad break after that.
Yeah, I'll do it quickly. Only because I know we've talked about edge. I think edge is actually might end up being one of the easiest positions for the Patriots to add at this offseason. There's a lot of Max Crosby talk, which I will say his production's been depressed the last 2 years, partly because the Raiders aren't very good. But he's getting near 30 and edge rushers fall off quickly. So there was, I think, some concern there for me. But this free agent class, Jalen Phillips, who the Patriots I think were interested in at the deadline we talked about, expected to hit free agency. He has had injury concerns in the past, but other than that, is a very good player, someone who makes sense for the Patriots. Obviously, you can bring back Chason. You have, let me go down the list here. Oh, Boye Mafe from Seattle, who's like their fourth edge rusher who could start from most teams in the league. They're not going to re-sign him. And Odafe Owe from the Chargers, who they traded for mid-season. If he hits the market, he is someone who's very interesting to me. You got some other guys too down, like Arnold Ebiketie, if you want to take a flyer on someone who's a designated pass rusher in Atlanta, who's kind of fallen out of the rotation there. It's a pretty strong edge class in free agency, even if some of these guys don't end up hitting the market. And depth was the biggest concern for the Patriots. You add to the fact that it's a very deep draft class. And I do think this is one of those positions where you can probably sign two of these guys and also draft, throw your third rounder at the position. And it's like, all right, whether it's Chason coming back and someone else or two additions or whatever. And it's like, we're going to sign two veterans. Those are going to be our starters at the position. Landry is going to have an opportunity to fight for that edge 3 role if he's able to recover here and play well. Whoever you draft is going to be fighting for that edge 3 role. And you still have Penny Jennings, and you still have Elijah Ponder and Braden Swinson.
Yep.
And that's where coaching matters, to try to coach these guys up and get more of a rotation there. You saw with Seattle, like a lot of those guys were guys like Tank Williams is someone they signed in, or Tank Lawrence is someone they signed in free agency. Like you can get some of those guys and just have depth and waves of guys coming at you. I think that's something the Patriots can copy here a little bit.
I think it's a great point. And, it's funny because you look at two guys like Ponder and Swinson, right? I expected a lot more of Braden Swinson, and we didn't really get much. Now, we'll see what happens in the offseason, but I didn't expect anything from Elijah Ponder, and you got a pretty good year out of him, right? It's certainly second half of the year. And it's like, that's kind of what those day 3 picks are. We don't know what we're getting with those day 3 picks. I expected a lot more out of him, but obviously the league didn't feel that way because he was drafted a lot later than we expected him to be drafted. Turns out that the league, may have been right on him. Now, maybe he comes out and has a great year, but then you sign a UDFA and Elijah Ponder, and he goes out and plays well for you. And you say, okay, well, if that's Braden Swinson instead of Elijah Ponder, everyone's like, oh, the Patriots did a great job. But it's like, well, the same thing. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, what difference does it make that he was, Ponder was a whatever UDFA and Swinson was a 4th, 5th round pick? Who cares? It doesn't matter. The point is that they got a guy that can play edge. And, who knows if it's at a high level? Who knows if, whatever. But I think the biggest thing, and we see it with the Seahawks and we see it with the Eagles, and like you mentioned, is like, you just got to have a bunch of guys you can throw at the spot. What we saw from Corey Durden this year, what we saw from, Kyrus Tonga at times, and what we saw from even Leonard Taylor at times, and what we saw from Joshua Farmer when he was healthy at times. Like, you just have a bunch of guys that can go out there and play. And I think that matters. That matters quite a bit. And so we'll see. Nims also asked about Marcus Jones. They just signed him to a 3-year extension, I believe. So he's around for a while. They signed him this past offseason to an extension. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Signed through 2028. Yeah, and they can't, hypothetically, if you wanted to cut him this year,
you can't.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
They can get out of the last year of it, I think, pretty easily if they wanted to. And then they could get out of the 2027 season pretty easily too if they wanted to. So
yeah,
it's a 3-year deal, but you can get out of it after this season if for some reason you feel like you want to.
Right, which we don't anticipate that. But again, it's always good for the team to have flexibility, regardless of who the player is. It's always good for the team to have flexibility in case something happens. I don't expect that to be the case with Marcus, but who knows? So man, he almost did it. Almost won Super Bowl MVP. The pick 6 in the first play. You imagine? I may have died of a heart attack. It's probably better that he didn't, because I genuinely may have died in my basement of a heart attack if Marcus Jones on the first pass attempt of the game had a pick 6.
That would have been unbelievable. Simply unbelievable. Which is like that would have been another Ty Law moment.
It would have been. Yeah, it would have been. So, and like I said, ultimately what it comes down to is that you got to make the plays when they're there. And the Patriots were close to making those plays, but they never were able to make those plays, whether it was a great play by the Seahawks or they just didn't make the play on their own. That one was a great play by the Seahawks, great throw by Sam Darnold, but sometimes it was the Patriots had an opportunity to make a play and they didn't. And so, that's the way it goes.
It's funny. You look at the Sam Darnold performance, like it's in some ways this game felt like the inverse of the Pats-Chargers wildcard game, where it was like Darnold wasn't good, but he just avoided the mistakes and cashed in when they needed it and avoided the sacks and everything. It's like there's, I think, some similarity there to obviously May had the pick early that wasn't his fault in the Chargers game. But I think some similarities where pretty early on your defense is going to do enough and your offense just has to do a couple things and you're going to win the game.
Yep. Yeah. So a quick ad read. We'll go through my mock draft quickly after that, but we'll go from there. So this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matches every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. Now, Prize Picks has the early payouts. As you remember, if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. And make sure you use the social feeds feature on there as well. You can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail, or most likely fade, our picks with just one click. So what are you going to do? Download the app Prize Picks, put in the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, so we'll kind of get into this mock draft. We're not going to maybe talk about the entire draft, but there are some guys that I think people should be paying attention to. We haven't done a ton of scouting yet. We'll get into the draft and we'll do some live mocks on here as well. Because we got like just under 70 days, about 65, 66 days, maybe 6-7 days. I don't know until the draft. I'm not sure, but somewhere around there. But for my first mock draft, which is kind of crazy, my first mock draft came out after the Super Bowl last year. I feel like my first mock draft came out like I don't even know.
December. I think we did a December one.
I think so. Yeah. So like a full 7-round mock draft. So this is my first full 7-round mock. Pick 31. I stuck at pick 31. I took Jennings Dunker out of Iowa. I freaking love this kid. If you paid any attention to the Senior Bowl, he was like the media darling of the Senior Bowl. He has a mullet, and he's just a mauler. He just wants to just throw people on the ground and drive them out of existence. It's fantastic. I love it. Played right tackle at Iowa, but he also played a little bit of guard at Iowa as well. At the Senior Bowl, he was playing tackle. He was playing guard. He was even snapping the ball at center. And so I think he understands that he's going to have to transition inside. And so this obviously would be your left guard pick. He feels a lot like a Logan Mankins type of player. For me at least. And people always, mentions that, and I can't remember. I can't even say the dude's last name, but I think it's Ian Acher, played right tackle last year and looks like a good player as well. And yes, he looks like a very good player. And he probably might be a little bit better than Jennings Dunker. I think he's going to be gone earlier, but you never know. But I love it. I love it. And Nims, yes, he was the guy pancaking everyone. I love it. So big fan of him. In the second round, I went with Malachi Fields, who is out of Notre Dame. Big-bodied, huge receiver. This is the type of guy the Patriots want and need. He fits what Drake May does. He's a guy similar to what Drake May wants to do. He's got great hands. And he dominated people in one-on-ones. Probably the best wide receiver that was at the Senior Bowl this year. And so, whether he makes it all the way to 63 or not, I don't know. But that's the type of guy for me that it's like, all right, let's see what you got here at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's quarterbacks usually stink, but Malachi Fields played well. So that's a guy I like a lot. And then I went tight end in the third round. I went with Eli Stowers from Vandy. Won the Mackey Award last year for the nation's best tight end. Went into college as a quarterback, has transferred around a few different times or whatever. So, but he doesn't fit exactly what you want, Matt. He's a smaller inline guy.
So I have barely done any scouting yet, but this is one of the guys I've watched.
Yeah.
And you know that meme from Arrested Development where they're talking about people deluding themselves into buying like the house, and they're like, it never works for them, but it might work for us.
Right.
That is how I feel about him.
Yes.
He like you mentioned in the article, he's a quarterback to tight end convert, so he's kind of new at the position. He's that gives you absolutely nothing as a blocker,
right?
But he plays physically. The way he finishes through contact and makes guys miss tackles. I mean, there's one play where he's getting tackled 5 yards short of the sticks that I watched, and he somehow evades the tackle enough and reaches out with his arm to get the first down. And it's like,
yeah.
Or the ones where he's getting 25 yards after contact. Like it's, and it's with these guys, the floor is so low because if they can't block and the athleticism doesn't translate, you cannot put them on the field.
Correct.
But so that's the issue. That's like, you would just get the ball in his hands and things are going to happen.
Right. And that's, so anyways, I just think, but we'll see. But I just love the tape on this kid. And like you say, that's, so we'll see. Then I went in the fourth round, I went Torian York from A&M. He's a linebacker. Again, undersized, right? 10 years ago, this dude he'd be like a safety. Yeah. Right. But I just he has his IQ is really high. He actually is a really good run stuffer.
Mm-hmm.
Plays in the SEC, played against good competition. Will that translate to the NFL? I don't know. But he's athletic enough. And and he's a great tackler. So, is it a perfect fit? Maybe not, but I like it. And Paper always mentions Kyle Lewis from Pitt, and he's a solid player too at linebacker. Might be a better fit. Wouldn't be around in the 4th round, which is why he didn't make the mock draft. He's probably more of a 2nd round, maybe a 3rd round pick, but he's not making it to the 4th.
I believe in one of my college football 26 dynasties, I got Kyle Lewis to transfer to my team, and he became like the best player on the defense.
So, I love it. If
that means anything at all in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, it could.
Yeah.
And then I went corner. I went Dalen Everett from Georgia. Big dude, bigger player, big physical corner. Not big. I mean, he's like 6'1", 6'2", and like 210. He's not huge, but he's a bigger guy at corner. And the Patriots kind of like those big physical corners. Plays hard, plays, and honestly, he's a guy who plays a ton in press man. And so I like it. Physical tackler. And so I like that fit a lot. The next 2 guys for me, both interior defensive linemen, Landon Robinson from Navy. Matt, I beg you, Matt. I beg you. Go watch this kid at the Shrine Bowl. He's incredible. He's incredible. He's so much fun. He's an absolute maniac, impossible to block. He completely dominated the Shrine Bowl and then went to the Senior Bowl and then did the same thing at the Senior Bowl. And so, like, he's a guy that didn't even get a combine invite, but he again, undersized interior defensive lineman, but he's impossible to block. And he's got the get off. He's awesome. He's awesome. I just, I love it. So Landon Robinson's, a ton of fun. I absolutely love it. So go and watch it. Go and watch him. And then Caleb Proctor's the other guy from Southeast Louisiana. He's another guy that, is a little bit smaller, a little bit undersized for an interior defensive lineman, but tough to cover, penetrates, ridiculous burst off the line of scrimmage. I like him quite a bit. So that was fun. And then I went Keyshawn James Newby, who's an edge from New Mexico. And he's kind of this same kind of guy. He had 10 sacks. He had 74 pressures last year for New Mexico. Just like get after the passer. And so I like the look of that. And then the last few guys here, Emil Wagner from Notre Dame is an offensive tackle. Right tackle, a guy that, has decent athleticism, not incredible athleticism, but is a huge guy, wicked long player that I think could be a developmental right tackle behind Morgan Moses. And then also be a backup plan for you if Will Campbell has to move inside after next year, could be a backup plan there. So I think probably more likely right tackle for him, but you never know. And then last 2 is Jamari Taylor from Virginia. He's a running back. He small. So that's kind of the theme of my mock draft was undersized guys, but smaller guy, but he can run between the tackles pretty well, even for a smaller guy. I like him quite a bit. And then the last guy is Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson, to me, from LSU, is a little bit of a souped up Pop Douglas. I think that he's a little bit of a better separator than Pop Douglas is. He's just a tiny bit of a better route runner than Pop Douglas might be. And so I think that, you take a shot at a guy like that. And again, it may not be the 7th round. You may have to take him in the 6th round instead of the 7th, but I like him quite a bit. And he gives you kind of that other option. If Pop Douglas isn't really cutting it for you and you feel like we need another guy that can get open against those zone coverages and has a better feel for some of that. Pop does at times, but, I don't know. And so Aaron Anderson's a guy that, I like. But again, smaller guy. I went undersized guys, but I'm always the undersized guys. I have a little. I don't know what it is.
Top
Marcus
spot
Jones,
for
like all those guys. Like I don't know. I like those undersized guys a little bit.
Yeah. I'm excited to start digging into this class. I know right off the bat, I'm looking for some blocking tight ends. I have a list of guys who I'm looking for tape on who got good blocking grades this year. One name I'm going to throw out is Carson Ryan from BYU. I'm sure you're going to see him in a mock. He was PFF's like one of the top graded gap blocking tight ends in this class. He also had like 600 receiving yards. Have not watched the tape yet, but I like that profile for New England. I'm looking for the day 3 wide receivers because I don't think we're going to use a top pick on one. So it's who can contribute to this group. Pass rusher, obviously the linebacker, I think is going to be a big one. Linebacker's a spot where I like the guys they have, and also you want to get better for the future. And then corner, safety, 2 spots where you don't need guys now necessarily, but I think you will long term. I feel like we should do a little housekeeping here too. 2 things I wanted to read off for this. Just a list of who the actual. Well, we did this last year. Let's do this real quick. I'll read off the list of free agents the Patriots have.
Yes.
We'll just do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down on if they have to come back at like whatever market price is. We'll say.
I got you.
Are you in or are you out?
Yes.
Go by snaps played.
Okay.
Jalen Hawkins, market price, in or out?
In.
I'm also in. Caleb on Chase on market price.
I would say tentatively in, but I think you could theoretically upgrade it.
Yeah, I think that's where I am. I am in, but I also don't think I'm signing Chase on before free agency. Think how New England, I'm letting the market decide the pass rushers and then just kind of signing too.
Right.
I like Chase on. He doesn't have to be in that group. So a pass rusher at the Chase on level at market price, not necessarily Chase on.
Yeah.
Austin Hooper, yay or nay?
Out.
Yeah, out on Austin Hooper. Jack Gibbons is a restricted free agent, so they can just tender him. So
you might as well tender him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He played decent enough down the stretch. I thought that he's a decent enough player. He's a good depth linebacker.
Agreed. Vidarian Lowe?
So I would say yes, but I think someone's going to pay him. I think he's going to get paid this offseason.
Yeah, I am in if he is paid like a backup tackle, and I am out if he is paid like a starting tackle.
Right.
The only problem with that is we just talked about, the questions about Will Campbell, the questions about Morgan Moses. You hate losing tackle depth.
Of course. But you have Marcus Bryant. You have, I think Marcus Bryant played extremely well in camp. We didn't really see much of him during the regular season. He probably wasn't ready for it, but he's a guy that I think could provide you some depth during the season next year. Obviously, he wasn't able to get it done this year. Maybe he just wasn't ready, but the
fact that Thayer Munford jumped Marcus Bryant,
it's not
good. That tells me Marcus Bryant is probably not on the team next year.
You might be right. Yeah.
I just don't think, and then he can improve, but
I'm just surprised he played very well, I thought, in camp. And even in the preseason, I thought he played very well. I'm just surprised that happened to him this year. Obviously they didn't like what they saw from him once the regular season started, but I'm just surprised.
I didn't think he played that well when he came in either. I just think he was the day 3 guy for a reason.
Right. Yeah.
Kairos Tonga?
Yes, I'm in.
Yeah, Ian. Same here. Jack Westover, he's in ERFA, so they can tag or not.
Yeah, you might as well bring him back. I mean, what the heck,
That's how I feel. I do think that they should bring in competition. Well, you have what's his face coming back, Brock Lampy.
Yeah, but he lasted exactly one practice.
Yeah, so I think you need someone who has played fullback at the NFL before.
Yeah.
You can keep Westover if you want to be part of that battle, but yeah. Alex Austin, RFA. So this is just a tender.
Yeah, I'm tendering Alex Austin. Why not?
Yeah. Thayer Munford.
I mean, I guess if Vidarian Lowe is going to walk and you don't feel comfortable with another backup tackle, I'm okay with him as a backup tackle. I don't think he's great, but as a backup, as a a guy that can give you some depth, sure.
I put Munford kind of in that, almost in the Caleb on Chase on category of I'm willing to sign him at market price, but I want to let him hit the market first because I think he's fungible. Like I think you can, if you don't re-sign Thayer Munford, I think you can just re-sign a different depth tackle.
Right.
or sorry,
Right.
acquire a different depth tackle. Yeah. Dearness Johnson's a free agent.
I mean, I don't know.
I think we've
I
hit the
guess.
point on this list. Yeah. After here, I don't think it's Dearness Johnson, Craig Reynolds, who I forgot was even under contract.
I know
Yeah,
that
it's all the
is.
practice squad guys. All right. So
Yeah.
not worth talking about those guys.
Right. It's interesting. And and Paper Waves says, Munford or Lowe, but to me, Lowe was a guy that, and I think that, what's interesting, right, is that Shooter McGavin here says Lowe is a high-end backup. I agree with that. The thing is that he's not going to get – I don't think he's going to get paid like that. I think that someone's going to pay him to come in and fight for a job. And I think they're going to pay him as, the 33rd best tackle, right? Or whatever, right? The not necessarily a starter, but right on the fringe of a starting tackle. And I think someone's going to give him a decent amount of money to do that. Yeah. And I think that Lowe is the one thing that I'll say about Vidarian Lowe, and he got, again, so much hate here. But he's a guy that has improved every single year. And that's the one thing. And listen, and Shooter's kind of saying, like, we should resign him. And I don't necessarily blame. I think that makes sense. I don't know if he can play the right side. I genuinely don't.
Big issue.
If he can't play the right side, then that's a problem because hypothetically, theoretically, we have our starting left tackle, right? God forbid something happens and Will Campbell can't play left tackle anymore. Whatever, right? Sure. But I'm not spending a ton of money on the guy who's going to eventually take over for Morgan Moses. And I think Vidarian Lowe is like 27. It's not like he's 23 years old, right? Like Vidarian Lowe, I think, and I might be wrong about that, but I think
he's 27, yeah.
27. So like, I'm not spending a good chunk of money on a 27-year-old that I'm not intending to play this year. I just don't think that makes sense.
It's just it's how much are you willing to pay for insurance at the position,
right?
Basically,
right.
And I do think part of this depends on what other tackles. Like, I don't know what the tackle market looks like this offseason. I don't know how many other Vidarian Lows are out there. Let me just see. Jermaine Illuminar is supposed to be a free agent. Rasheed Walker from Green Bay is supposed to be a free agent.
Yeah,
I don't know if these guys hit. Let's see. Braden Smith from the Colts, who plays tackle there, expected his contract's expiring. Like, there's some interesting names out there who I think will get paid more if they hit the market. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird market to judge.
It's a strange market. And again, are you bringing in a guy? I don't want to give a lot of money to a guy that I'm expecting to be a backup this year. And again, maybe he plays, and it's valuable to have depth. You have to have depth, but I'd rather roll with guys that I think are decent depth players that can step in for a game or two if they have to. I'm not signing a guy as a starter if I don't intend him to be a starter. That doesn't make any sense to me, because we don't have the money for that. We have a lot of money. We don't have the money for that. We're paying Christian Gonzalez this year. That's happening. It's going to happen. The Patriots have to pay Christian Gonzalez this year. I think they'd be stupid not to. You're not going to let him walk, and he's only going to get more expensive. So you're going to have to make him the highest paid corner in the NFL. Fine, do it, because he deserves it, and he's good enough to get it. So do that, and then we kind of go from there. But we don't have, $18 million a year to give Vidarian Lowe. We don't have that. Like, that just doesn't. Now you're telling me Vidarian Lowe's going to be available for like $3 and $20. Sure, 100%. I'll give him that. I'm fine with that. But like, I don't think he's signing for that. Maybe he will, but I don't think he is.
Well, let's just see how the market develops too. There's a lot of time, not that much time between now and then.
No, there isn't. But
do you want me to get to the offseason calendar here real quick?
Yes, let's do it.
Just because I hadn't looked at this yet. So here's how long we now have for everything. In 2 days, February 17th is when teams can start tagging players officially.
It's wild.
So yeah, we're almost there. Scouting Combine, February 23rd to March 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
The day after that, March 3rd, is the deadline for the franchise tag. So we're going to get into that quickly.
Yep.
Free agency unofficially starts March 9th with the tampering period.
Legal tampering period.
Yes, legal tampering period, and then officially the new league year starts on March 11th. So that's when those deals can become official. League meeting is at the end of March. NFL draft April 23rd to 25th. I don't know if we have. We don't have dates for camps or anything yet.
No, none of that's set up just yet.
Well, July 22nd it looks like the first date you can have camp. No, something like that.
It's somewhere around there, though. It's gonna be late-ish July, like it is every year.
Yeah. Spring league meeting is May 19th to 20th. A lot of times they'll talk about things at the first league meeting and then decide on things at the second. So if you're looking for rule changes, I think that's probably where those are going to come. Fifth-year options have to be decided by May 1st. Who's the fifth-year option the Patriots have to? It's not. Oh, is it Christian Gonzalez?
It would be Cole Strange.
It would be Cole Strange? Okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I thought they had to decide on that last year. I think it's Christian Gonzalez now. They have to decide on.
Gonzo's. Oh, you're right, because Gonzo's going into his fourth year. You're right.
Yeah.
So you have to decide.
If you have not signed an extension by then, I'm sure they're going to pick that up.
100%. Yeah. But I mean, again, it's just like, why wouldn't you? Unless you're looking at it and saying, we'd rather pay him less next year and then decide on doing an extension after that. I just don't think that with the way the cap is going up and the way that the salaries are going up, I don't think that makes sense to do. Especially where he's earned an All-Pro, so that means he's going to earn a little bit more. And so I don't know. So we'll see. But
and then last dates, looks like the NFL opener is either going to be September 9th or September 10th. September 10th is the Thursday of week 1, so that should be when the Seahawks host their home opener. But there was talk of that Rams 49ers Australia game being kind of the unofficial season opener the night before is the Wednesday night game, the one they're doing in Australia.
Oh, I hate that so much. I hate that so much.
If they're doing that game, that makes perfect sense to play it then because you've got the bye week before it with no fourth preseason game anymore.
That's true.
You've got a lot of recovery time after if you're going to do it on a Wednesday. So I think that logistically that makes a lot of sense to do that then. And then presumably Seattle would play the next night. I'm going to lock in a guess right now. I think the Seahawks open the season at home against the Bears.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I also would not be surprised to see New England open the season in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football for that new stadium.
Yeah, the new stadium. That'd be sick.
Yep. And then in 364 days will be the next Super Bowl. Make your plans now, people. It's on Valentine's Day next year.
Yep.
So I have had that situation settled here for already for a year because I looked ahead and saw that. But if you need to make arrangements, I would start making those plans now.
Make those plans. Make those arrangements. Let her know. I will tell you, or let him know, depending on who's watching. I will tell you, everyone's gonna have the next day off. Well, I mean, maybe not everyone has President's Day off, but I'm gonna have the next day off because it's school vacation, and I'm very excited about that, which is nice. It allows for some other things to go on, which is nice. So you're able to kind of hang out and not have to worry about going to school the next day or work for that matter. So
yeah. And the fact that it's a long weekend, I think, makes managing the Valentine's Day stuff easier because you can celebrate on the Saturday. You can celebrate. I honestly, depending on how that game is, a Sunday brunch leading into the Super Bowl sounds very nice.
Yes, it does.
A little boozy bottomless. That could be a good time.
Yeah.
And you can also do a celebration on Monday itself. What do you call it? My fiance here and I, we didn't want to have to go out to dinner for Valentine's Day on Valentine's with how crazy it gets. So we're just going after this show. So we get a quieter restaurant. We got the long weekend and we can do that. So
it's great.
I recommend that for people. Super Bowl next year is out in LA again, by the way.
Yeah, it's quick. It's a quick LA again. So
yeah. And then it's in Vegas.
I was going to say, I think it's Vegas the year after. Yeah.
We are on. Yeah, it's a whole Western U.S. kick for Super Bowls right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So, the last thing we should do is just go through the. There's no schedule yet. One thing that wasn't on the calendar, that isn't on the calendar, and won't be on the calendar yet, is the release of the 2026 schedule. That should happen sometime in May. Typically, that first week in May is when that happens. And so, so we'll see what that looks like. I will tell you, I think that the Patriots have – so for those of you that are planning to come to a Patriots game, to a Patriots home game, they only have 8 home games. They have 9 away games, which means they have an extra preseason game. So the way it works, because you have 3 preseason games, you either have 1 preseason game at home and then 9 home regular season games, or you have 2 at home, 2 preseason games at home, and then 8 regular season games. You have 10 home and 10 away regardless. It just depends on if one of them is a preseason or 2 of them is a preseason this year, and that rotates every year. So it's just on a rotating schedule. This year, the Patriots have 2 preseason games at home, which means 8 home, 9 on the road during the regular season. At home, outside of – go ahead.
I was looking at the Gillette Stadium schedule because I was curious, and there's also already a lot of events for August on the books. So I do wonder how they negotiate that. And then the World Cup is there over the summer. There's going to be the grass surface for that. I think they already said the grass surface is not.
Grass is coming back up. They're putting the turf back down. Yep.
Which I will say, as someone who's a proponent of grass fields, it is worth noting the grass that you use for soccer is very different than the grass you would use for football. Like in soccer, the players are a lot more spread out and they are lighter. So the stress that gets put on the playing the surface is a lot more evenly distributed across a bigger field. And not as intense. In football, with the offensive lines, you have 10 players that are 275 pounds or stronger pushing against each other into the grass in the middle of the field for the entirety of the game that chews up that area. So soccer grass could not sustain that level of just impact. Yeah,
agreed. So, but anyways, we don't know the preseason schedule just yet. We don't know the preseason opponents just yet. But at home, obviously the Patriots face the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. Clearly, they have Denver, Green Bay, Las Vegas, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh. That's a pretty good slate for good teams. Denver's obviously a good team. Green Bay is typically a very good team. We'll see what Minnesota looks like next year. And then Pittsburgh obviously is a playoff team this year. We'll see, if they have Aaron Rodgers again next year or whatever the case may be. But those might be some fun games for people to go to. Obviously, the Bills game is going to be a ton of fun. And that matchup's going to be a good one. But Patriots have some really good home games. If you don't live in New England and are looking to make the trip to New England, they have some really good ones to go to. Yeah. On the road, again, they're in Buffalo, they're in Miami, they're at the Jets. They have also Chicago, which they were a few years ago, and Chicago's awesome. So I personally go. I go to 1 away game a year, sometimes 2, but usually just 1 away game a year. Chicago was incredible. I went to Chicago last season, 2024 season. It was awesome. I went to Notre Dame while I was out there. Chicago was a really cool place to go. Nice stadium as well. So that was fun. They're in Chicago. They're in Detroit, which again, that's a heck of a team. I don't know about the city, but it's a heck of a team. They're in Kansas City. That's the trip that I want to make. We'll see what happens. We'll see when that is. But they're in Kansas City. They're at the Chargers in LA. They're at Seattle, and they're at Jacksonville. So, Jacksonville may not be a great trip, but it's a solid team. At least it was last year. And, you're talking about Chicago, Kansas City, LA, Seattle. Like they're in some good spots that are, good road trip places. Kansas City to me is the spot that I definitely want to go to this year if the timing works out. But that's some good road trip possibilities, whether you're coming to New England or whether you're going somewhere else to go see a road game. Lot of fun destinations this year.
I think I want to add on top of that, where I think you're going to see a lot more primetime games involving the Patriots next year. I believe the max allotment is 6.
6, right? Yeah.
And that does not include, I don't believe that includes a Thanksgiving game. I don't think that includes international games. So if we're saying
definitely doesn't international, it might include The night Thanksgiving game.
Yes. But I think what I'm saying here is that in terms of, what they call island games,
yes,
the Patriots could get as many as 8 next year when you look at this slate.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to get that many, but I think you're going to see far fewer Sunday 1:00 time slots from last year. So if you enjoyed those, sorry about that. a lot more night games this year is what I expect to see. You also have on this schedule 8 games against teams that were in the playoffs last year, not including a game at Detroit, not including a game at Kansas City. Right. So much tougher.
For all you schedule freaks out there.
On my first viewing through this, like just looking at what the primetime games could be, I'm guaranteeing at least one of the Buffalo games is primetime.
100%.
I have to think that's going to be in Buffalo again, just because they have the new stadium, and I think they're going to want to sell that. Denver, AFC Championship game rematch in New England. If that's not primetime, it's going to be the Sunday 4/25.
100%. Yep.
I also would not be shocked if that's early in the season, because I think the narrative is very interesting with Bo Nix missing that game.
Yeah.
I could see that being a home opener in like week 1 or week 2.
Yeah.
I could see that being a September game pretty easily. And you also have the home game against Green Bay. That feels like a primetime one.
Sure does.
And a home game against Pittsburgh, that's not a high octane matchup, but that's 2 teams that draw eyeballs. So
exactly.
That get the primetime treatment. On the road, we talked about Buffalo. Bears game could be primetime. Detroit game, primetime or Thanksgiving. That I don't remember the last time the Patriots played at Detroit and it was not Thanksgiving or primetime.
It feels like the Thanksgiving Day game. It may not be, but that feels like the Thanksgiving Day game.
Well, I think 2000 was Thanksgiving, 2002 was Thanksgiving, 2010 was Thanksgiving, and the only other time other than that, since the Patriots became good, that they have not played on Thanksgiving in Detroit was 2018. Which was the Matt Patricia game against New England, which they put on Sunday Night Football week 3, I believe. So, and that will get some kind of standalone window at Kansas City. Feels like that game will happen in the second half of the season to make sure you get May versus Mahomes. That feels like a primetime game. At LA against the Chargers could very well be a primetime game. At Seattle could very well be a primetime game. I think we get that not week 1, but early in the season.
I think so too.
Sometime in September, early October. Yeah. And at Jacksonville, I don't know if that's going to get primetime, but that's another one of these playoff matchups. And they're redoing that stadium in Jacksonville. So maybe they don't want that in primetime for this one, given some of the other ones, but a lot of options here. And also, Patriots haven't played an international game in a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
certainly
it'll be a year. It'll be 2 years because they played the Jacksonville game in 2024.
And they also did it 2 years in a row, in 2023 and 2024. So,
but now the Patriots are good. Might be open to that again with 9 road games. I think if you're in New England, you're probably itching to do it this year and see if you can get one of these road games moved to a neutral site venue.
I would agree.
In which case, I think just another Pats Jaguars game in London, I think, is absolutely a possibility. Just do that again. Pats Bears in London also feels I could see them doing that. 2 young quarterbacks. And, that's one of those weird matchups. And sometimes they put division matchups over. Have they put division matchups over there? I feel like they have.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm thinking of Chargers Chiefs down in Brazil.
Okay.
Or like 49ers Rams in Australia coming up. So in theory, they could move one of these.
That's true.
Pats Dolphins and Pats Jets feel like, I don't know. It feels like the AFC East has 2 teams that are hoping to contend for a Super Bowl next year and 2 teams tanking for the number 1 pick.
Right.
And I think the schedule will probably reflect that with those games.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. And I some conversation going on. Nims asked, if we went from the easiest schedule to the hardest schedule. And I think, statistically, maybe. And the Patriots have an extremely hard schedule next year because just of who you're playing. And again, this is set up years in advance. But you're playing the AFC West, you're playing the NFC North. And the AFC West has, 3 potentially very good teams in it. You talk about LA and you talk about Kansas City, right? And you're talking about Denver. So that's 3 potentially very good teams in it. And then the NFC North might have 4 good teams in it. right? When you look at who's there, and we'll see what Minnesota looks like, and if 9 is actually any good. But like Green Bay is a good team, and Chicago is a good team, and Detroit is a good team, and then Minnesota you feel like is another good team, and so it's one of those things. What it comes down to is how you play against the AFC East opponents, and then how you play against the other 3 opponents. Because remember now, the schedule is the same for the entire AFC East. Yeah. How do you play against the other 3 opponents, right? How do you play
when the 3 differing opponents for the Pats and the Bills? If we're talking at the top,
right.
Pats get the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills get the Ravens. So
right.
I think that actually works out in New England's favor.
I think so
right
too.
There.
Yeah.
Pats get the Seahawks. Bills get the Rams.
Yep.
Which I don't know if that works out in either team.
Toss up. Right.
NFC is going to be favored in both of those matchups, I think.
Yep.
And then the other one's what, Jags versus Texans?
Yeah. So again,
which
same
I don't
thing.
Even know if
it's just like,
yeah, like those are pretty equal strength. So I think
right.
Patriots and Bills are going to have, in terms of strength, essentially
tough
identical schedules next season.
Tough ones, and that's okay. That's all right. Like I want to be challenged by the teams around the league, and I think that's what happens. And it just. Do we want that to be the case? No, but like it is. Next year you play the NFC. Next year you play the NFC East and the AFC South. And so is that a little bit easier? Maybe, right?
Well,
but maybe not.
We're also 2 seasons away. We don't even know.
So that's
if Cam Ward turns into a top 5 quarterback overnight, and he does what Drake May did, all of a sudden that looks incredibly difficult. Things change quickly in the league. So
that's the thing. And also. Right now, it looks like a very tough schedule. Who's to say that the Broncos don't take a step back? Who's to say that the Steelers don't fall off the cliff, and or the Bears take a step back next year, or even the Chiefs take a step back? So it's those types of things where it's like, yeah, it looks like a really difficult schedule, but maybe 3 or 4 of these teams that you think are going to be really good teams all of a sudden aren't really good teams, and now your schedule looks a lot easier than it did. Because that's. Inevitably, that's what happens, right? You're playing 8 playoff teams. That's 8 out of the 14 playoff teams. Usually, 50% of the playoff teams are new playoff teams, right? So you're playing more than half of the playoff teams, which tells you that at least 4 of those aren't going to make the playoffs.
Technically, they're playing 7 playoff teams because they play the Bills twice. But yes,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
And it's this is you play. These are all professional teams you're playing against.
Correct.
So, like it's just. You got to go out there and play to your own level, which I think is something Vrabel has stressed regardless here.
100%.
And then I think the last note we might want to leave this off on heading into this is the reminder that the 2001 Patriots who made the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl missed the playoffs in 2022 and then ran off the greatest win streak in modern NFL history starting in 2003 into 2004 and won back-to-back championships.
Yeah.
So I think I think we have to not get too high and not get too low on this. There's probably going to be some moments next year where the Patriots, like Drake May, just doesn't look as good because you're going to play harder teams and growth isn't linear. And we shouldn't freak out about that and say, oh, man, we just got a 1-year blip. Like we shouldn't. I think staying steady here is important just because, you can only control what you can control. And there's going to be ups and downs.
Yep.
And one down year does not mean that the franchise is falling apart. Now, if you have a down year because everyone you drafted last year and this year stinks, then maybe there's some real cause for concern there. If you play to about the same level and only win 10 games and miss the playoffs by a game because of that, I'm not raising any red flags for that.
Right. I agree. And this is, the Patriots went 34-4 in back-to-back years, right? In those 2 years combined. And win back-to-back Super Bowls and become, that 04 team might be the best team, might be the best Patriots team ever, in my opinion. So it's
04 versus 16 for the Super Bowl champion teams, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, it's just, that's what happens. And again, who are the guys you bring in and how do you develop those guys and so on and so forth. And so again, it's, do you miss the playoffs? Do you make the playoffs? I don't know. I don't expect them to be in the Super Bowl again next year. Maybe they will be. I didn't expect them to be in the playoffs this year and they were in the Super Bowl. So who the heck knows, but all we can hope for is they're competitive in every game. That's all you can hope for.
And I do think the way the schedule breaks out and the way the conferences break out, whoever wins, just with how hard the schedules are right now, whoever wins the AFC East might end up being the 3 or the 4 seed.
Right.
So it kind and maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of good teams. Well, teams getting healthier next year. Like if Lamar and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes were all fully healthy next season, and Bo Nix comes back and looks good, and Justin Herbert looks good, and they're able to fix it. And then Cam Ward starts to develop. I mean, you're looking at every division having at least 2 quarterbacks who you think can play at an incredibly high level. So that's going to make that schedule very interesting. It might be one of those years where if you win 11 games, you're hosting a playoff game.
It's certainly possible.
And if you win 10, you're missing the playoffs.
Yep.
So those games against Buffalo probably end up being massively important next year. And I think your goal is to be within striking range to actually win the division. That's kind of my minimum expectation next year, is be able to compete with Buffalo, be able to compete for that AFC East title, and hope that you're going into the playoffs. At least you're going into maybe a late season Bills game with the opportunity to control your destiny for the division.
Yeah, I agree. And that's and again, it's not just the Bills games. Then it's the Jets and Dolphins games, right? Because those games, the Patriots swept those 2 teams this year, but the Bills didn't. And so, and that could be a big difference between, winning the division and not.
I'd put the Steelers game up there too. Steelers and Broncos, those home games where if you I think there's a real situation where the Pats and Bills split, sweep the rest of the division. You're both 5-1. Your tiebreaker at that point is probably going to be record against AFC opponents. So especially those home games, those games against you've lost at home to Pittsburgh last year. I think Pittsburgh's going to be worse next year, and I thought they got a little lucky in that game. But you do have to beat them. That can happen again. You got to beat them. You got to beat Denver at home. Those 2, take care of your division games, and you should be right in this down to the end. But yeah, it'll be a different group of players.
I agree. So we'll see. By the way, Nims invited us down to Carolina when the Patriots play down there, but they don't play down there until 2029. So it's going to be a while. So if we're still doing the podcast and you're still listening, Nims, we'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
So,
is that we might have an opportunity to play them if we get the NFC South?
We don't. I was just looking at it. Right? I was just looking at it. 2020. So 2027, we have NFC South at home.
Oh, because it switches up.
Right. And then 2028, we have NFC North on the road, and then 2029 we're in Carolina, in Carolina and Atlanta. So
that'd be a fun game to go to. I do
Carolina or Atlanta. I'd love that. I'd love the Atlanta Stadium too.
I've been there. Actually, a fun story about that. We went to the Pats Falcons game before Thanksgiving a couple years ago, 2021, that season. Yeah. And my dad wore his 28-3 shirt. It has this. Of course. It has the score bug that says 28-3 on the front and the final score on the back. That's the entire shirt. And leaving the stadium, multiple Patriots fans asked to take pictures with him in front of the Falcons statue that they have outside of the big bird, just so that they can have a picture with that scoreboard in front of that stadium.
Yep, incredible.
Which is funny because that stadium didn't even exist at the time when that game happened. That was Georgia Dome Falcons.
It was back then.
But that stadium is cool.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's incredible. So
it is also, as someone who's afraid of heights, probably one of the more terrifying experiences I've had trying to get up to my seats in the upper deck. But that's just a me problem.
It's some of those can be tough. LSU this year was LSU was tough. Straight up, and we were literally in the back, literally the last section, the last row. I'm sorry, with our backs against the concrete, and I had a hard time. We were up so high, I had a hard time. I know I'm against concrete, but I still had a hard time putting my back against the concrete for a while because I'm we're at the very top of the stadium. So there's but at
MetLife, there's one. When you're going up to the top, you have to take an escalator to get up there. And it's just a single freestanding escalator. There's nothing around it. There's nothing on either side of it. And there's nothing underneath it. So you're just kind of and it's long. You're just kind of standing there on it for a couple of minutes. Just man, you got a lot of time to think that man, if this thing falls, then that's it.
And we're done. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yep. Hopefully the engineer that was building that was on his game that day,
Yes.
So
And obviously he was. There's been no
Clearly.
issues.
right, but still, But also, Paper Waves has mentioned this a few times here. He's got a draft site coming out. Looks like he's gonna have information, kind of some Patriots focused. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So I think he's gonna get me that in the next day or two. So we'll make sure to tweet that out for him. So, but anyways, that's it. We're gonna probably take next week off, and then we'll be back with you the following week after that. We'll kind of take February break off and then come back and then start our draft prep. Start doing some mock drafts for you guys and go through some players and everything. And of course, then then it's free agency, and then it's everything else. So we'll get into all that stuff. But that's what we got. So goodness sake. So anyways, thanks for tuning in this year. We appreciate you guys. It's been a heck of a year. And we'll be back at it next year. Hopefully even better. I don't know, but maybe we'll be better. Probably not, but you never know.
I hope.
So,
I hope that in 1 year we are doing a post Super Bowl win episode.
imagine?
That would be awesome.
Goodness sake, that'd be incredible. But we'll see. But either way, thanks for tuning in this year, guys. We appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. And again, like I say, we'll be back with you in 10 days or so, and we'll start our draft prep from there and go from there. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you guys. Be good.